God's grace and peace and welcome to you. I'm Peter Ilgenfritz. I'm the interim pastor here at the Congregational Church of Boothbay Harbor. And this is our Holy Week time of meditation for each day of Holy Week, Monday through Saturday. A chance for us to pause and wonder at, for some of us, familiar scriptures, but to ask, as they ask of us every year we read them, what does this have to do with us? And how does this speak to our lives today? It's been a year of a lot of noise, an incredible amount of conflict. We've seen it everywhere. We've seen it, of course, in Washington, D.C. We've seen it in our wider politics and our local politics. We've seen it in arguments over masks. We hear it now in conflict over how soon, how fast should we return to school in person, to businesses opening, to churches opening again for public worship. It's been a year of conflict, an insurrection in the nation's capital, insurrections in our own families and among our friends. Some of us have lost friends, no divisions in our family. That all of this noise and conflict, well, it's gotten into us as well. Tuesday of Holy Week, it's all about conflict. 3 chapters in the tiny book of the Gospel of Mark. 3 whole chapters of only 16 chapters are all about Tuesday of Holy Week. And in all of those 3 chapters, there's a lot of noise, there's a lot of arguing, there's attacks on Jesus and counterattacks by Jesus. Lots of noise of trying to undermine him, to find him out, to separate him from his followers. And it shows up today in this particular story of conflict that, again, some of us know. It's a story where the authorities asked Jesus to pull out a coin, where he asks them, as he asks us, what do we give back to Caesar, to our own places of authority, of government, those places to which we pledge allegiance? What do we owe them? And what do we owe to God? So listen for this word again from the Gospel of Mark, chapter 12. And the authorities sent some Pharisees and followers to bait Jesus, hoping to catch him saying something incriminating. They came up and said, "Teacher, we know that you have integrity, that you're indifferent to public opinion, you don't pander to your students, you teach the way of God accurately. But tell us, is it lawful to pay taxes to Caesar or not?" Jesus knew it was a trick question. And he said, "Why are you playing these games with me? "Bring me a coin and let me look at it." And they handed him a coin. "This engraving," Jesus asked, "who does it look like? Whose name is on it?" "Caesar," they said. Jesus said, "Give Caesar what is his, and give God what is God's." And their mouths hung open, speechless. Since 63 AD, the Roman Empire had taken over the Jewish homeland. And as conquerors are apt to do, they required a payment, a tax, a tribute to Rome. Most likely, the authorities who came up to Jesus this day wanted to separate Jesus from this growing crowd that was gathering around him. So they asked him about allegiance and where his lie. Well, either way, Jesus could have answered the question, would have gotten him in trouble. As they asked, is it lawful to pay taxes to Caesar or not? If he said no, if he denied the Roman authority, well, he would have been charged with sedition. End of the story. If he said and responded differently and said yes, he would have been discredited with the crowds who were gathered around him and resented Roman rule. And in the midst of it all, Jesus asks for a denarius, for a coin. Yeah, I don't know about you, but how often in the conflicts that we're engaged in, we just get further deeper and deeper and deeper in the conflict. But there's Jesus pointing a different way, a third way. He asks for something seemingly out of left field that makes them all look at something different besides this. Bring me a denarius. And they do. They bring him a coin. A denarius was a silver coin equal to about 1 day's wages. And you have to know this, that there were two kinds of coins in circulation at that time. There was one, the denarius, that had an image of Julius Caesar on it. It was the coinage of the Roman Empire. But the Romans also had another coin in circulation amidst the Jewish population because the Jews forbid having images of people or animals on coins or any other thing. So when they brought a denarius, they disclosed that, they were in cahoots with Rome. They had a coin with an image on it. If it's Caesar's coin, Jesus says, give it back. Which is kind of like an avoidance of answering the question. If it belongs to Caesar, you give it to Caesar. But then the clincher. but render to God, give to God everything that is God's. So instead of it all being about winning an argument or being smarter or better or more ethical or having more integrity or getting it right, all the ways that conflict can so diminish us, demean us, break our relationships with each other, sometimes conflict breaks us open to a wider, a bigger wonder. You know, there's nothing wrong with conflict in and of itself. Conflict's just part of life, necessary for life. And in every conflict, there's an opportunity for it to be an opening to curiosity and to wonder. And it's exactly what Jesus does here. Leaves them with a question. Render to Caesar the things that are Caesar, and to God the things that are God. So what then belongs to God? Well, everything. What belongs to Caesar? Well, in that perspective, nothing. What does that mean? Echoing in the imagination of all of the listeners that day was an old word from the prophet Micah. What does God require of you? What does God require of us? What do we need to render to God? Remember this, Micah said. This is what God requires: to do justice, love kindness, and walk humbly with your God. Will you join me in prayer? God, in a time when the noise has been all around us, on the news, in our homes, in our families, in our communities, in our churches, God, in a time when conflict has been all among us as we have walked through and are walking through this most challenging time. Help all of us in the midst of the conflict that we are in to find our way to curiosity, to wonder, and to find our way back to you, to find our way back to doing justice, to loving kindness, and walking humbly with you, with all we meet, and on the beauty and the grace of your creation. Amen.